Well, that draw took a very, very long time. And there was only one or two mistakes in there. Yes, welcome along to this week's Women's Football Chat. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m, bringing you the very latest from the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. This is a show that is dedicated to the FA Women's National League. So we have plenty to go through on this week's show. We've got league results, FA Cup results from 2 rounds, and of course more FA Cup fixtures coming up this weekend, plus plenty of league fixtures. This is minus 1 or 2, the final full programme of league fixtures of 2023. So there is plenty for us to talk about over the coming half an hour or so. Let's get straight down to it then. We will talk about that live FA Cup draw after the FA Cup results section of this. So we'll start with the Northern Premier Division. Should be able to cycle straight through these relatively quickly because there weren't many league games. They were predominantly FA Cup second round games this weekend. So just one in the Northern Premier Division. AFC Fylde against Halifax. Fylde had taken the lead in this one, 2-0 up at half-time, thanks to a goal for Clara Samson and one for Ginny Lackey as well. 30 and 40 minutes in that one. But Halifax coming back after the break with a goal for Shauna Legg in the 57th minute. And then in the 95th minute, Darcy Green popping up to equalise for Halifax. So the points are shared between those two. What that means for the Northern table, AFC Fylde are off the bottom. Huddersfield Town now take up the foot of the Northern Premier Division, but it means that Fylde still without a win so far this season. This is their third draw, which has put them on 3 points, but it is now a 4-point gap between Fylde and West Brom. The difference there, as you can see from the number of games played, Fylde have played 10, they're nearly halfway through their season. West Brom have 2 in hand on them, Halifax have 4 in hand on them, so it's really a 6-point gap to Stourbridge, the next side, who have played 10 games, who are there on 9. Huddersfield also really struggling this season. I said that's the only movement because Halifax stay in 9th. They don't gain anything, but they don't lose anything over the relegation zone. Then let's move on then to the Southern Premier Division. Again, only one game in this one. Came in Wales, Cardiff City 0, #United 1. Just the lone goal in this one for # coming to Gemma Abella in the 26th minute. That basically means that #United go back to the top of the table with 27 points from their 10 games. Portsmouth drop to second, but they still have that better goal difference, and now they have a game in hand again over #United. So those two still battling it out at the top. Ipswich still within touching distance. It's a 9-point gap between Ipswich and #United, but Ipswich have 2 games in hand. That same 9-point gap back to Rugby Borough is starting to look like it might be a little bit big. Even though Rugby have 1 game in hand, that will then become a 6-point gap if they were to win that. And of course there is still plenty of time to go for that gap to be made up, but you have to look at # and go, where are they going to lose these games? They've only dropped 3 points so far this season. They would need to drop a few more in the second half. But of course it is, particularly over the next few months, going to get very interrupted, the league, with more cup games and crucially postponements. We're having to start, particularly here in the Midlands, having to start de-icing the car in the morning, and it is meant to freeze every night this week. I suspect we will see quite a few frozen pitches coming up this weekend. But Cardiff City down towards the bottom, they're still 2 points clear of the relegation zone. They do have a game in hand over Chatham. They are 5 points clear of London Bees, but they don't have a game in hand over them. Moving down then into Tier 4 and Division 1 Midlands. A few more games in Tier 4 this weekend because, of course, fewer sides are still in the, or were still in the FA Cup. Interestingly now, we have no sides remaining from Division 1 South East in the FA Cup. So they are basically entirely playing league other than a few cup games, which is just, that's a whole new kettle of fish is the cup games. Division 1 Midlands, then we'll look at the results first. Northampton Town 3, Sheffield 0, 2-0 up Northampton were at half time. Alexandra Dix in the 10th minute and Kimberly Farrow in the 39th. The difference in the first half, and then Jessica Evans 20 minutes from time made it 3-0 to Northampton. Notts County drawing with Leek Town by a goal apiece. Notts had taken the lead in this one. Nicola Russell on the hour mark had given the Magpies the lead, and they almost held on, but Manuela Dell just 9 minutes from time equalised for Leek Town, and that would prove to be the only goal that Leek Town would score. The points were shared between Notts County and Leek. They've now both played 10 each. They've increased the gap by a point to the relegation zone, but it's still not as much as either of them would have liked. The other game, Northampton against Sheffield. Northampton, they stay in 5th. And they've gained 3 points. They're now one of 3 sides tied on 16 points, but they've got the most inferior goal difference of the 3. So they remain in 5th. No position change for them. Sheffield stay at the bottom. They do still have games in hand on the teams around them because, of course, Leek and Notts County playing each other meant that they didn't give up one of those 2 games, did Sheffield. So it's still a 4-point gap to them, but Sheffield do still have 2 games in hand. The problem for Sheffield is, again, similar to Fylde. They have not won yet this season in the league. It's 4 draws for them for their 4 points. Leeford Athletic not playing this weekend, but the other side in the relegation zone, a 3-point gap. But they do also have a game in hand over Leek Town and Notts County, and they have a better goal difference than Notts County and an equal goal difference to Leek Town. So a win for Leeford Athletic in their game in hand would mean that they jump out of the relegation zone. Just one game in Division 1 North then. Norton Stockton Ancients against York City. 3-2 in this one. A quick-fire double for Norton had put them in front at half-time after York had taken the lead. It was a brace in this one for Jones for York City in the 30th and the 50th minute. Norton's goals, a hat-trick for Bianca Owens, 32, 34 and 69th minute. That means, again, not really a huge amount of movement in the in the Division 1 North table. Norton Stockton Ancients go from 4 points and just outside the relegation zone on goal difference to 7 points and now 3 points outside the relegation zone. They are still obviously within that group of 5 that look like it's most likely to be 2 from those 5 that go down. York, Norton Stockton Ancients, Doncaster Rovers Bells, Chester Street Town and FC United of Manchester. Chorley, who are just 4 points clear of that group, have a couple of games in hand, and then it's already a 6-point gap to Durham Sestra, a 9-point gap from the relegation zone to Durham Sestra. So it does feel as though it's going to be 2 from those 5 that go down, and it's almost going to be a bit of a mini league between those 5 teams to see who goes down into Tier 5 next season. Division 1 South East, then 3 results to go through here. Ashford Town 2, Worthing 1. Goals in this one. Worthing had taken the lead very early on in this one. Gemma Worsfold in just the second minute had put Worthing in front away from home, but Ashford Town just after half time, Brogan Moore managed to get the equaliser for Ashford, and then 20 minutes later Martha Riley off the substitutes bench put Ashford in front, and that proved to be it. Queen's Park Rangers, great comeback against Cambridge United, who had gone 2-0 in front inside the first 7 minutes in this one. Abby Jackson just 3 minutes in, and Alicia Stockchow down in the 7th minute had put Cambridge United 2-0 to the good. But then an own goal 7 minutes before half time, followed up by Grace Stanley 10 minutes after the break, and Emily Hill just 6 minutes after that, meant that Queen's Park Rangers ended up winning that one by 3 goals to 2. And the only other game in Division 1 South East, Maisie Cannon with the goal for London Seaward as they got past Haywards Heath Town. Quite a bit of movement in that division then. 4 teams shifting. Queen's Park Rangers up a couple of places. Cambridge United down 1 after being beaten by QPR, and Worthing down a couple of places after being beaten by Ashford. We did mention last week that this was the ideal weekend for Wimbledon and Norwich, because 2 of the 4 teams really chasing them were going to drop points, and that has proven to be the case. So Queen's Park Rangers, they are 9 points back from Wimbledon, and there is no game in hand there. Ashford Town, if they were to win their game in hand, they could go to 20 points. It still would be a 7-point gap. So really good weekend for Wimbledon and Norwich, because if Norwich were to win their game in hand, they'd make it a 6-point gap between themselves and Queen's Park Rangers in third. So a good weekend for the top 2, and they didn't even have to play in the league. The top 4 all battling against each other, and a couple of victories, so no draws in those games. So it's not quite perfect for Wimbledon and Norwich, but certainly it's still a beneficial weekend for them. Down then towards the bottom, London Seaward in 7th. They get their 3 points for beating Haywards Heath Town, but no movement change for Seaward because their goal difference, although they were level on points with Actonians, their goal difference was already better, so they just pull away from them a bit. Haywards Heath Town, 3 points still away from safety. And there were no games in Division 1 South West this weekend. So that does it for the league fixtures from the past 7 days. Let's now have a look then at the main event this weekend, which was the FA Cup. We're going to start with the results from round 1. You remember there were 2 games left over in round 1, Brentford and Southampton Women's, and Keynsham against Marine Academy Plymouth. Now these games had been switched. You may remember they had 2 attempts to play it at the ground they were supposed to play it at, i.e. Marine Academy or Southampton, and they weren't able to get it played, so the game got switched. So Southampton Women's just getting past Brentford by 4 goals to 3 in extra time, and Keynsham Town needing penalties to get past Marine Academy Plymouth. They were 3-3 after extra time, Keynsham Town winning by 4 goals to 3 in a penalty shootout. Right then, let's have a look at these FA Cup second round results then. A few shocks in there and some great results for lower division sides. We're going then to start with Liverpool Feds against Durham Cessna. This is the same situation with the FA Cup, with them being alphabetical order. I've got to go and find them in order to give you the results. So just bear with me ever so slightly while we're going through this. But Durham Cestra, only goal of the game, Faye Dale in the 53rd minute. So 4th tier Durham Cestra of Division 1 North beating the Northern Premier Division side of Liverpool Feds. Rather unsurprisingly, Chorley losing by 5-0 to Newcastle United, the fully professional outfit, of course, of Newcastle. So Chorley only 1-0 at half time in this one, though. Chorley certainly did not disgrace themselves in this. Goals to Katie Barker in the 36th minute. Bridget Galloway in the 68th, Alicia Boddy in the 76th, Shana Wilkinson in the 84th, and Rebecca Ferguson in the 94th minute. FC United of Manchester losing their all Division 1 North tie against Hull City by 3-2, but there's no information about that one up as of yet. Stoke City 1, Stockport County 0. The Northern Premier Division side triumphing in this one. Ellie Leake in the 42nd minute, the only goal of the game. Burnley 9, Alnwick Town 1. It was always going to be difficult this for Alnwick Town against the side 2 divisions higher. No information about that result yet. Chester Street Town 3, Spennymoor Town Ladies 2. Again, no information about the result. Darwin of Tier 5 beating Tier 4 Leeds United by 4-3 in a penalty shootout after it finished 1-1. Jessica Razu with the only goal for Leeds United after half an hour. And Leafield Athletic losing to 5th tier Camden Court by 2-1. Neve Fallon with the only goal for Leafield in the 57th minute. It means that because of the position they are currently in their respective Tier 5, Camden Court, the lowest ranked side left in the competition, not Darwin, who many outlets have put are in Tier 6 when they are in fact in Tier 5. Norwich City then with a 2-1 defeat to Boldmere St Michael's. Kerry Fly the goal for Norwich City. No information about Boldmere St Michael's on there yet. Rugby Borough beat Solihull Moors by 7-1. Solihull Moors' goal coming to Emily Hornsby in the second half, but Rugby Borough with 7 goals. Lily Greenslade in the 15th minute, Sarah Hassanin in the 21st, and Alana Mann in the 39th, 3-0 at half time. Then in the second half, Sarah Hassanin again with her second of the game in the 53rd minute. Then Ebony Wiseman in the 70th, Samantha Kerwood Wagner in the 77th, and Hassanin finished her hat-trick off in the 89th minute. 5th tier Worcester City gave it a good go against 3rd tier MK Dons, but eventually came up short by 3-0. And I'm trying to find it on here, and it doesn't seem to be on the system at all, unless I'm being completely blind. Oh, there it is. It's because they're in alphabetical order and in kick-off time as well, so they're all over the place. MK Dons, 1 for Laura Mitchell and 2 for Lucy Wood, with the difference there. West Bromwich Albion, they needed extra time to get past 5th tier Needham Market, 0-0 at the end of 90 minutes in this one. And West Brom really not doing as well as perhaps they would have thought they would do here. But Needham Market, West Brom needing extra time. Again, I'm struggling to find it on the on full time. We're going into the previous round there. There is only like a single page of there, and it's I'm either being blind, very much so, or it isn't on there. I seriously cannot find it on full time, which is very bizarre. But West Bromwich Albion winning by 3-0 after extra time. Nottingham Forest beating Sporting Cowser 3-2. Not quite as comfortable as perhaps you would have expected from Forest, but they get the job done. May Moncaster in the 23rd minute, Sophie Domingo in the 39th, and Luann Worsley in the 41st minute. So 3-0 Forest were up. Olivia Stubbs got one back for Sporting just before half time in the 43rd minute. So 3-1 at half time. Then Leonie Joyce in the 83rd minute made it 3-2. Made it very nervous for Forest, but they do manage to hold on and get their place in the third round. Then we go to Derby County, who beat Loughborough Lightning by 4-1. This is despite Loughborough going in the lead in this one. Lauren Purchase in the 8th minute had put Loughborough in front, but Derby came back thanks to 2 goals from Eleanor Ashton in the 42nd and the 68th, 1 for Amy Sims in the 48th, and 1 for Rebecca May in the 79th minute. Then we go into the second page then of the FA Cup second round. A few fixtures left on this side because, of course, there were those 2 games that were in the first round, so the second round games didn't happen. They're happening this weekend. Wolves beating Peterborough United by 7 goals to nil. A hat-trick for Amber Hughes, 2nd, 9th and 83rd minute. Tammy George had got one in the 4th minute as well. So Wolves were 3-0 up after just 9 minutes, and that was the tie pretty much done. But Wolves being Wolves carried on going. Beth Roberts in the 40th minute meant it was 4-0 at half-time. Then Sophie Bramford in the 61st and Katie Johnson in the 66th meant that Wolves eventually finished 7-0 winners. Ipswich Town beat the 4th tier Sutton Coldfield Town by 8 goals to nil. Very convincing victory for Ipswich. A hat-trick for Lena Williams, 2 for Sophie Peskett, and 1 each for Megan Wearing, Natasha Thomas and Lucy O'Brien meant that Ipswich very comfortably through. And Portsmouth, a very similar situation against the 5th tier side of Ebbsfleet United. 7-0 victors, 5-0 at half-time for Portsmouth. 2 for Bethany Lumsden, 18th and 76th. 2 for Georgie Freeland, 22nd and 61st. 2 for Sophie Quirk, 37th and 45 plus 2. And 1 for Emma Jones in the 32nd minute. So 5-0 at half-time for Portsmouth. Again, the game pretty much done and dusted by the break. Oxford United 2, Dartford 0. Again, not perhaps as convincing a victory as you would have thought from Oxford. 2 for Zoe Barrett, 1 in the 66th and 1 in the 98th. So a very late insurance marker for Oxford. Haringey Borough 1, Moneyfields 4. Got to find that one. There it is. So 2 here for Charlie Wilson Wilton in the 41st and the 58th, followed up an opener for Kimberly Fuller in the 12th minute. So 2 goals before half-time, 1 after half-time for Moneyfields. The all-tier 5 affair between Enfield Town and Luton Town finished 5-3 to Luton. Billericay Town 2, Dulwich Hamlet 1. Now Dulwich took the lead in this game through after the penalty, but Billericay Town, no information on full time about this, but Billericay Town getting back in front, so they win by 2 goals to 1, but a very good effort from 5th tier Dulwich Hamlet. Chatham Town 5, Wimbledon 4. This is probably the tie of the day in terms of goals. 5-4 between the Tier 3 Chatham Town and the Tier 4 Wimbledon. Don't forget Wimbledon top of Division 1 South East, so it's a very close 2 teams in here. But goals for Wimbledon in the 8th minute to Ashley Goddard, in the 75th minute to Hannah Billingham, in the 78th minute to Ashley Hinks, and the 90 plus 1st minute to Daisy McLaughlin. Now only 4 have been put up for Chatham: Jasmine August, Boyan Grant, Ellie Jeffkins and Latita Nichols. I'll just see what the reasoning for only 4 being on there is. There is no reasoning. It doesn't say there's a penalty or an own goal in there, so only 4 have been recorded, but a terrific game there. 5-4 Chatham coming out on top. The other non-FAWNL game, Millwall Lionesses against Bromley. Millwall winning that by 2 goals to 0. Swindon Town losing by 2 goals to 1 to AFC Bournemouth. Bournemouth just keep on winning, don't they? They came out on top in this one by 2 goals to 1. 2 late goals though for Bournemouth. 76th minute Gemma McGuinness and 92nd minute Chloe Gilroy. So only a stoppage time winner for Bournemouth. No information about Swindon up there as of yet. But Cheltenham of Tier 3 getting the better of Exeter City of Tier 4. Again, very, very late goals here for Cheltenham Town. Emily Allen in the 87th minute, Phoebe Poole in the 90th, and Emily Owen in the 93rd. So I'm presuming in this one, and I will just check this out because I'm unaware at the moment, but it's certainly something that worth knowing. A heartbreak potentially for Exeter if they were 2-0 up in that game, only for Cheltenham to come back with 3 goals in the final 6 minutes of this game. So going through all of Exeter's Twitter. So no, so it wasn't quite that way. So it was 3-1 to Cheltenham, and then Exeter got another one back even later into stoppage time than the 93rd. So wasn't quite as heartbreaking for Exeter as it might have been, but it sounds like it was a thrilling finish there in Cheltenham. And finally, Plymouth Argyle 4, AFC Stoneham 2. Goals in this one for Plymouth. Ellie Sarr in the 10th and the 77th, Gemma Rose in the 14th, and Rosie McDonnell in the 65th. And that is those are the results so far of the FA Cup second round. For just skip ahead somewhat, we have two fixtures this weekend: Bristol Rovers against Keynsham Town, Southampton Women's against Maidenhead United. Those are the two games in the FA Cup second round that are taking place this weekend. Hopefully they get played and the third round is then uninterrupted. What else have we discovered with the FA Cup this week? Well, Adobe is the new FA Cup sponsor. So when I wrote my article last week about where this extra £3 million has miraculously appeared from, and is there a new sponsor we don't know about? Yes, there was. It was Adobe. And that's where this money is going to be coming from. And they said, third round draw, we're going to do it live on Instagram, which was a bit weird. I'd have chosen YouTube, but each to their own. And it went okay. It was very long. It took about half an hour for 20 ties to be drawn, which is a very, very long time. And it went okay. There was a couple of errors in there. And people, from what I saw, were getting a little bit frustrated that after every single tie, they went to the two people doing the draw and going, "So what do you think of that tie?" And then they would talk for 30 seconds each or so before drawing the next one. But I realised after one or two that was so that the people working behind the scenes had time to type the draw into the boxes underneath. Now, I would have, if it was me, I would have done that in what we call in the industry as live. So it's recorded, but you don't make out that it's recorded. You don't lie and pretend that it's live, but you just make no reference to live or pre-record, and you just do it as a similar thing with YouTube, and you just do you do the recording and then you just put it out and you say, the draw will be at 3 o'clock, and it's still a full video and everything, and everyone can still interact as live, but you're not doing it live. And then what you can do from that is what I do with the summer knockout. You record the draw and then you can edit all the graphics, and it just makes it a lot smoother, because as soon as a ball is drawn out, there's the graphic ready, because we aren't huge production companies like the men's FA Cup draw has. I spotted a couple of things in there. One, although they did correct themselves a few minutes later, they did read out one of the ties wrong. So they did do that. And then they also said that Darwin were the lowest ranked side left, and because of the positioning in Tier 5, they technically weren't, but I'll let them off on that. And then Nick from the Wolves Women podcast told me that they said that Wolves and Hull were in the same league. Now, I missed that because while the draw was going on, I was also making the graphic to post after the draw. So I was concentrating more on typing once the ball came out rather than listening to exactly what they were saying. Again, a similar thing. It took them about 45 minutes after the draw finished to post the graphic with the draw, by which point every single club had already done it. I'd already done it. Craig from Talking Woso had done it. And basically, everybody else had done it before the actual competition had. But I don't want it to sound like I'm just bashing them all the time. For a first time doing it, it was certainly acceptable and still interesting to watch. Hopefully they learn what works and what doesn't work with that, and they can improve for the future, and not just in this season, but for future seasons as well. That's the hope. But yeah, for a very first time, not bad at all. Right, so we've gone through the FA Cup then, and I've given my 2 pence on the live draw. Let's go back now to looking at league fixtures, because the only 2 FA Cup fixtures this weekend we've just gone through. Now this is a almost full programme this weekend. There are a few postponed county cup games that are just causing a little bit of a delay, but there are 5 games in the Northern Premier Division. AFC Fylde not playing this weekend. So the games: Derby County in 7th against top of the table Burnley. Burnley, of course, still have played a game more than Newcastle, Wolves and Forest, who are still all playing this weekend and still all trying to catch Burnley. Newcastle at home to West Bromwich Albion, who are down in 10th, and it's at home at the Kingston Park Stadium, so Newcastle will fancy their chances in this one. Forest away at Stoke City, that's 4th against 6th, probably the toughest game that the top 4 have got to take on this weekend, particularly because it is at the Bet365 Stadium. Stoke playing it at the men's ground. So Stoke in 6th, just 2 points behind Forest. They could leapfrog Forest with a win. And Wolves will skip towards the bottom there at home to Halifax, who are down in 9th. So Wolves again will fancy themselves for the 3 points. So Forest away from home will really need to get the 3 points to keep up any sort of pressure on the top. Stourbridge against Huddersfield Town, 8th against 12th. Stourbridge will really fancy themselves in this one to get themselves to 12 points. And that, if they were to do that, would put them 9 points clear of relegation, and that would be a very comfortable margin for the Birmingham side. Southern Premier Division then, 4 games in this one. Billericay Town against Ipswich Town, London Bees against Portsmouth, Rugby Borough take on Chatham, and United against Cheltenham. So Billericay Town in 8th against 3rd placed Ipswich. Now Ipswich in this one again will really need the victory. Now with Portsmouth and both playing as well, this isn't one of Ipswich's games in hand, but they cannot afford to lose any more points. Billericay 5 points away from 5 points above the drop zone, will definitely want to try and get something out of the game. If they can get a point, then there is the potential for that to go to 2 wins, which would be a big difference when Chatham and London are chasing. London are at home to Portsmouth, so 12th place London Bees against 2nd place Portsmouth. You have to feel that Portsmouth are going to win that one. Rugby Borough against Chatham Town, 4th against 11th. So again, Rugby playing a side in the relegation zone, so a tough one for Chatham there. And United against Cheltenham, 1st against 7th. Probably the more difficult game again for the sides in the top 4, but United just on such good form this season that they will fancy themselves as well. So the top 4 all in action. We'll see if the gaps remain the same at the end of the weekend. Division 1 Midlands then, lots of fixtures to talk about in this one. Solihull Moors against Boldmere St Michael's tonight is 4th against 6th. Then at the weekend, a full programme. Leaford Athletic in 11th against Peterborough United, who are in 2nd. Loughborough Lightning against Lincoln City is 1st against 8th. Notts County against Northampton Town, 10th against 5th. Sheffield against Sporting Cowser, 12th against 3rd. Sutton Coldfield Town against Boldmere St Michael's, 7th against 6th. And Solihull Moors against Leek Town is 4th against 9th. So at the weekend, it is the top 6 against the bottom 6. So if it goes the way of the top 6 all winning, the bottom 6 all losing, then that gap is just going to increase. But we'll see. Based on the predictor league that I've got running this season, whatever I say is going to happen in Division 1 Midlands, the exact opposite tends to happen, because I'm well and truly last in that division of Division 1 Midlands. So whatever I say is going to happen, don't believe me. Division 1 North, 5 games this weekend. Doncaster Rovers Bells against Barnsley. That's going to be a tough one for Doncaster as they desperately try and take themselves away from the bottom 2. Durham Cestra against Chorley, 6th against 7th. That should be a good contest at the Graham Sports Centre. Hull City in 2nd, FC United of Manchester down in 12th. So Hull City will again fancy themselves the top 2 there, facing sides in the bottom 3. Stockport County against Norton Stockton Ancients, 5th against 9th, and York City against Middlesbrough is 8th against 3rd. So yet again, in Division 1 North, another division where the sides at the top are playing sides struggling towards the bottom. So it may well be that we don't see an awful lot of movement in the divisions this weekend. But as I said and alluded to earlier in the show, I also suspect that we are going to have quite a few postponements this weekend due to frozen pitches. Division 1 South East, full programme then. Ashford Town against Queen's Park Rangers is 5th against 3rd. Cambridge City against London Seawood, 11th against 7th. Cambridge United against Worthing is 4th against 6th. Cheshire United take on AFC Sudbury, 9th against 10th. Haywards Heath against Actonians is 12th against 8th. And Norwich City take on Wimbledon. Huge game at the top of Division 1 South East as 2nd plays 1st. So probably with the likes of 4th playing 6th and 3rd playing 5th and 1st playing 2nd, and London Seawood in 7th playing 11th, and towards the bottom as well, 9th facing 10th. Division 1 South East probably the most interesting league this weekend. Plenty of possibility for teams to move, gaps to increase, gaps to shrink. I mean, you just look at the top 2, Norwich City hosting Wimbledon. If Norwich win that, it's a 3-point gap, and Norwich have got a game in hand. Then that really tightens that up. If Ashford Town and Queen's Park Rangers happen to draw, then that just completely blows that gap wide open. If Wimbledon were to win, then they go to an 11-point gap, and then you're thinking, right, well, that's really difficult for Queen's Park Rangers and Ashford to make up now. So it is going to be possibly, if the weather stays away, a really interesting week. And in Division 1 South East, but also in Division 1 South West. A perfect record will end this weekend. AFC Bournemouth in 1st with 9 wins from 9. Take on Exeter City in 2nd with 8 wins from 8. Something must give this weekend. Exeter City with a game in hand over Bournemouth. They're 3 points back. Their goal difference is a bit inferior. But who's going to come out on that one? No idea. Probably has 0-0 written all over it. Abingdon United against Moneyfields, 4th against 5th as well. Both of those sides need a win to keep up pressure on the top. Chelsea against Portishead Town, the bottom 2 coming up against each other. Portishead in 11th with 4 points. Chelsea at the bottom, yet to get a point this season. So Portishead will fancy 3 points here, and to get themselves, that would move them into 9th, providing that Torquay don't win away at 3rd place Swindon. Even if Torquay do, a win for Portishead Town against Chelsea would mean that Southampton Women's drop into the relegation zone and Portishead would move out, although Southampton will have, after this weekend, 3 games in hand over Portishead. But yes, those are the league fixtures coming up this weekend. You see, not a completely full programme, but many games still taking place, hopefully, if the weather stays away. And I really hope it does, because that looks like a thrilling weekend, particularly in South East and South West of FAWNL action. As always, www.womensfootballchat.wordpress.com is the place to go for more of my articles, and that's where you can find the link to the Predictor League as well. That's my next job, is to go and make sure everything's ready for the weekend with the Predictor League. But thank you so much for watching and or listening to this week's Women's Football Chat. If you want to get involved, the website is the place to do so, or on Twitter at Chris_Gadsby. I'll be back next Thursday at 6 p.m. with the FA Cup third round preview, plus a look back at hopefully what will have been a thrilling weekend of FA WNL action. Goodbye.